And I'm very grateful to Secretary General of the United Nations, to multilateral institutions like IMF, World Bank, and UNDP, AIIB, and friendly countries around the globe who came to our rescue and to support us. But as I speak, we have already spent about $400 million to provide basic support to 2.7 million households. And this includes repurposed amounts as well, given by World Bank and other institutions. And about $575 million all told have been spent. Cash in kind have been contributed by friends and brothers around the globe. But now we have to go for rehabilitation, reconstruction of our infrastructure to put people back on their feet. It's a huge challenge that we have to put back people on the feet to the tune of 33 million. That is, I think, unprecedented in the contemporary history. Therefore, today this conference on resilient Pakistan is being undertaken, and I'm glad to announce and share with you, as you must have all known by now, that various representatives from various parts of the world, French President, President Macron, and Turkish President Erdogan, and other international dignitaries have either spoken through Zoom or through video messages, supporting and inspiring all of us to undertake this gigantic task. I would like to conclude by saying that Pakistan today, in consultation with its friends and institutions, presented comprehensive framework plan for resilient recovery, rehabilitation, and reconstruction, and includes a robust financing mechanism. We would be able to generate close to about $8 billion domestically, but we're looking forward to an amount of equal share of $8 billion internationally. Of course, today, hefty amounts have been announced, ranging from 300 million euros to $100 million and $80 million, and so on and so forth. Islamic Development Bank has announced a figure of $4.2 billion, which is one of the largest contributions so far during the progress of this conference. I want to say without any fear of contradiction that we look forward to working very closely with our great friend. I must tell you that people of Pakistan will remember you for all time to come. You don't know Urdu, yet you spoke the language. You don't know them, yet you are one of them. Mixed with them, shook hands with them, and hugged them. Secretary, I am personally obliged to you and very grateful to you. And you have inspired millions around the globe. Ladies and gentlemen, I am grateful for this wonderful arrangement made here in Geneva. I am very grateful to the host country, Switzerland, and very grateful to all relevant members, states, ministers, and other dignitaries who have been able to find time to participate physically in this conference. We are extremely grateful to all of them. I want to make this statement categorically, without any fear of contradiction, that every penny will be spent in a most transparent fashion. I have put in place third-party validation mechanism so that every penny is accounted for and is invested in the interest of the needy and helpless people who have been badly affected by these ferocious floods. Thank you very much, and thank you all.
Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I'm indeed very pleased to be joined by Prime Minister Sharif. And dear Prime Minister, I want to thank you very much for your kind words. But you have nothing to thank. I did my strict duty. For many years, since I was High Commissioner for Refugees, I visited Pakistan in different occasions, and I always witnessed an enormous generosity of the Pakistani people. You have received millions of Afghan refugees. You have hosted them, you have protected them, you have shared your resources with them in a way that is unparalleled in the world. At the same time, I could witness in difficult moments of your country, with the earthquake, with the floods, previous floods, with the impact of terrorist activities. I've always seen, in relation to Pakistanis displaced inside their own country, an enormous generosity of the Pakistani people. And so it is the duty of the international community to correspond to that generosity, expressing the full solidarity with Pakistan in this moment of truth. It is not solidarity, it is justice. And I think that justice will start to be made today here in this conference. Now, this is a conference with lots of numbers and figures and statistics, but when I look at the challenge, what I see are faces, human faces. I hear stories like the ones I heard when I visited Pakistan in September. Stories of lost lives, lost jobs, lost crops, lost homes, lost communities. And stories of sacrifice, generosity, and solidarity. Now, this conference is focused on resilience. And I've seen resilience time and time again from the women and men of Pakistan. From enduring the scourge of natural disasters and terrorism, to Pakistan's long and proud history of welcoming, protecting, and supporting millions of Afghan refugees currently living in Pakistan. But that spirit of generosity and resilience needs to be matched with support for resilience from the global community. And it needs to happen in three fundamental ways. First, with massive investment, supporting Pakistan to rebuild homes, buildings, and infrastructure, to jumpstart jobs and agriculture, and ensure access to technology and knowledge to help withstand future disasters. And I hope this conference will be the beginning of this massive investment. Second, with revolutionary action on finance. In addition to natural disasters, Pakistan is also a victim of the man-made disaster of a morally bankrupt global financial system. A system that denies middle-income countries debt relief and concessional financing to invest in resilience and recovery. And that must change. I renew my call to global leaders and multilateral development banks to join forces and develop creative ways for developing countries to access debt relief and concessional financing when they need it most. And third, resilience requires meaningful climate action now. If there is any doubt about loss and damage, go to Pakistan. You'll see loss and you'll see damage, and you'll see our common future. The decision taken at COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh on loss and damage must be implemented. And developed countries must also deliver on their commitment to double adaptation finance and provide 100 billion US dollars annually in support to the developing world. But, ladies and gentlemen of the press, we are on the road to climate ruin. The 1.5 degree warming limit, universally agreed as the only way to safeguard our planet and our future, is on the verge of collapse. The risk is an irreversible collapse of the 1.5 degree goal. Moving as we are moving, we will get to 2.8 degrees of increased temperature. Imagine what will happen in Pakistan and everywhere in the world if things do not change. Now, as global greenhouse gas emissions continue to rise, we are all in danger. Today it's Pakistan, tomorrow it could be in your country. And I am deeply frustrated that global leaders are not giving this life or death emergency the action and the investment it requires. Because words are not enough. Without action, climate catastrophe is coming for all of us. So, dear Prime Minister, I stand with you and we stand with Pakistan. Now is the time to invest in the resilience of the Pakistani people, to mobilize massive investments from the world in order to pay tribute to the enormous generosity that the Pakistanis have always shown. Thank you very much.
We will have time to take a few questions. I would like to give the first question to the President of the UN Correspondents Association. Please identify yourself as well with the media you represent.
Good morning, Mr. Secretary General. Good morning, Mr. Prime Minister. On behalf of Academics Association of Journalists accredited at Geneva, I would like to welcome you and wishing you a new year. My question to you, Mr. Secretary General, I'm working also for the Kuwait News Agency. You mentioned today in your opening remarks the need of a more financial global system. How can the UN help to create such a more global, ethical global financial system? Thank you.
Well, I think we have been very active in different circumstances, in different fora, with our own initiative on financing for development in the post-COVID situation, in our interventions in the G7, in the G20, and in the spring and autumn meetings of the World Bank and the IMF. It is very clear that the present system is biased. The system was conceived by a group of rich countries, and naturally it basically benefits rich countries. So we need, first of all, to recognize that we have presently a situation in the developing world in which countries are strangled by debt and countries have no access to the financial resources they need in order to be able not only to address the dramatic challenges they face, but also to implement the Sustainable Development Goals. We need a new debt architecture. And we need to make sure that debt relief is effectively provided by the system, even to middle-income countries that are on the verge of very difficult, very dramatic situations, including suspending their payments. On the other hand, we need multilateral development banks to change their business model. We need them to assume more risks and to be able to leverage more systematically private finance. That is essential. But private finance today is only accessible to many developing countries at very high interest rates that do not allow for the solution of their problems. So multilateral development banks, beyond their loans, need to provide more guarantees to bring private finance at reasonable costs. Must be first risk takers in coalitions of financial institutions to support developing countries. And this is true in relation to situations like the situation in Pakistan, but also to build resilience in all other aspects, facing climate, facing the risk of pandemic situations, and taking into account the need to implement the Sustainable Development Goals. And on the other hand, it is absolutely essential that concessional funding is made available to middle-income countries that are particularly vulnerable. When a least developed country graduates, that graduation brings with it a cost, the loss of concessional funding. And in many situations, they are still extremely vulnerable. So we need to redesign our financial system in order to be able to take into account vulnerability and not only GDP when decisions are made about concessional funding to countries around the world. So there are many other aspects in which we are working hard, and I hope that member states that control the boards of these institutions will be able to implement the kind of reforms that are needed to establish more justice. Today, just to give you an example, my country, Portugal, even in this very difficult situation and with a very high debt to GDP ratio, is still being able to get funding at 3 or 4% of interest rates. I was with President Ruto of Kenya a few days ago, and he told me that when they are trying to go to the market to finance the country, the best offer they had was 14%. It shows that there is a basic injustice in today's system and that we need effective reform.
Let me go to Ash Television. Yeah.
My question is Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, and I will ask in my own language, in Urdu. सर आपने
शहबाज शरीफ
सर माजी में हमारे जब भी आफत वगैरह आई है और फंड हमें मिले तो हमेशा हमने यही देखा है कि उसकी शफाफियत के हवाले से सवाल उठाए गए, लेकिन ये बड़ी अच्छी और खुशहाल बात है कि अभी आपने बात की है कि हमने इस हवाले से थर्ड पार्टी के हवाले से हमने उस पर काम किया है, और क्या इसकी मज़ीद आप तफसील बताएंगे?
Yes, this is in my speech today that these programs, through joint collaboration and with international support, will be undertaken in a very transparent fashion. I said in my speech that since I believe in this mechanism, therefore I had given clear instructions to my team that third-party, independent third-party validation will be part and parcel of this program. All these interventions will be undertaken under these conditionalities. तो ये जो आपने बात की है बिल्कुल सही कहा कि शफाफियत ये हमारी पहली तरजीह है, और उसका तकाजा ये है कि इंटरनेशनल जो कम्युनिटी जो फंड्स मुहैया करेगी, आज जिनके ऐलानात हो रहे हैं, वो खुद हमसे ये तवक्को करेंगे कि हम एक एक पाई का हिसाब दें, और उसका वाहिद तरीका ये है कि सारे का सारा निज़ाम बहुत शफाफ हो और थर्ड पार्टी मैकेनिज्म, थर्ड पार्टी वैलिडेशन जो है जिसमें हुकूमत और पैसे देने वाले किसी का कोई इख्तियार या असर ना हो, थर्ड पार्टी खुद हकायक की बुनियाद पर उसका फैसला करे.
Let me now go to AFP. I think the microphone is making its way to you.
Thank you. Nina Larson with AFP. I had just a question for both of you. I was wondering if you could say how confident you are that you'll be able to get the massive investments that you're asking for, the $8 billion from international sources that you're asking for. And for Prime Minister Sharif, I was wondering if you could say how close you are to a deal with the IMF for the next disbursement tranche and what the main stumbling blocks might be. Thank you.
Well, it is my hope that we'll be able to come out of this conference with a support as close as possible to the 8 billion that, as the Prime Minister said, the international community is supposed to contribute in relation to this program at this moment. But this is not the end of the story. I believe it will be very important as the program of reconstruction moves on to go on mobilizing international support, because when we see the situation in Pakistan and the level of devastation that took place, and when you see the fragility of the country in relation to possible future natural disasters, I think that international solidarity will not stop at this conference. But if we come close to the 8 billion, that means that there is a considerable success and a demonstration of trust in relation to the government and the people of Pakistan for the capacity to implement what is a very ambitious but very well-structured program that was also presented in this conference.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to just answer your question that even before these floods hit Pakistan, we were already facing humongous challenges because of serious tension in Eastern Europe, and as a result, food inflation, the prices of oil and gas were skyrocketing, and Pakistan was facing this imported inflation in a very, very difficult situation. And how could you expect that after the floods hit Pakistan and almost destroyed everything, that we would pass on this imported inflation on the common man, and he or she will accept it without even a squeak? That is unnatural. And that is also not in line with the norms of justice and fair play, that the rich can enjoy both the worlds, whether the prices of oil touch $200 a barrel or $30 a barrel, and a poor man who is able to meet these two ends with great difficulty, you will expect that he will absorb this price hike without any protest and agitation. That is not human, strategy. That is not normal. It is absolutely abnormal. Yet we had to again connect with IMF and resurrect that agreement which was violated by the previous government, and accept even harsher conditionalities. So that is our challenge. And today, while we are complying with IMF conditionalities as best as possible, but how on earth can you expect from me that I am working out of Prime Minister's house and a poor man in the far-flung areas of Pakistan, in the sand dunes, in rocky mountains of Balochistan, or snow-covered peaks of KP, or plains of the province of Sindh, which have been, even today as you go over there, you will find standing water, which has destroyed their livelihood, that we should pass on this additional burden on them. It is nightmarish, to say the least. Yet, we are committed to IMF's program. We will do everything to comply with their terms and conditions, although I am constantly trying to persuade them that please give us a pause. I'm very grateful to Secretary General. He is also in touch with them. I spoke to the Managing Director the other day and tried to first assure her that we will comply with the terms and conditions. And B, I said, you are a wonderful person, wonderful human being. You have a heart of a gem, and you know the plight of poor people in developing countries. So kindly be considerate and compassionate and give us some breathing space. Well, this is an ongoing dialogue. I'm sure one day soon we will be able to convince them through logic and through facts. That said, regardless, we will comply with IMF program.
Mr. Prime Minister, did you want to say something else, Secretary General?
Well, I'd like to say that economic stability is very important. But let's not forget that the day we will all be there, there will be perfect economic stability.
Thank you so much, everybody. This is all the time that we have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, Secretary General.
मोहम्मद शहबाज शरीफ और सेक्रेटरी जनरल अक़वाम मुत्तहिदा एंटोनियो गुतेरेस की मुश्तरका न्यूज़ कॉन्फ्रेंस सहाफ़ियों के सवालों के जवाबात भी दे रहे थे। इस प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में वज़ीर आज़म ने